Tell me when. All right, hey, good morning, guys. We're at Grissom Parkway today, and I'm glad to be with you. We're still continuing our series on developing influence through people skills, and we're going to kind of do some layered learning. We've kind of talked about listening before, but how many of you can be better listeners? Yeah, pretty much all of us, right? It's one of those skills we have to constantly work on to get really good at. Here's what Dean Jackson says. He says, listening is an art that requires attention over talent. It requires spirit over ego and others over self. That's why it's such hard work. A person of influence listens to people. Here's what Stephen Covey says. He says, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. Think about that. Guilty as charged. I'll raise my hand. So let me ask you this: on a scale of 1 to 10, rate yourself. Let's rate ourselves. Where are you as a listener? Now remember, everybody in here has to work with you every day, so they know the real you. So you need to be honest. So what's the where are you at? What's your number?
I'm about 6.
6. All right. Good. Good. All right. 7. All right.
I'd say 7.
Wow. Y'all are good listeners.
6.
6. All right, I'm looking for honesty somewhere. 7.
I'm just gonna say 5. Right in the middle.
There. Okay. Well, now we're getting some honesty. All right. Here we go.
I was gonna go with 5.
Go to 5. Okay. Matt.
I'm going to go
7. 5. All right. Good. I'm probably not even there as a listener. Just being honest and a little transparency, especially if you ask my wife. I'm probably more like a 3 or 4. I hate to say that. Gosh, it's just hard work, and I speak for a living, and so when somebody's talking to me, it's really work to keep my mouth shut. I mean, it really is, because I feel like I've got something to say, and I was doing some counseling with a guy on the phone last night. We were on the phone about an hour and 20 minutes, and I listened to him for about an hour, and after that, it just like the floodgates opened up. I just had to just tell him something, So for 30 minutes, I just told him. So point is, it's just work, and it's something we've got to be conscious of. We've got to make a big effort. So I'm going to share a few things with you here. Here's the value of listening. Bernard Baruch said this: most of the successful people I've known are the ones who do more listening than talking. Think about that. Now, Bernard Baruch, does anybody know him? You know where Hobcob Barony is, down on the south end? Used to be a big plantation. Anyway, he was an advisor to presidents. He probably advised 7 to 8 presidents, but he had Hobcob Barony Plantation was his home. So anyway, point being is that we need to do more listening than talking. Listening shows respect. Listening shows respect. Think about it when we're trying to develop a client and develop that relationship with a customer. If we're not listening to them, what is it telling them? Yeah, think about it at home. If you have children and they say, "Oh, you're not listening," and they walk off, or they end the conversation. Now they can say it because they're your child, right? But adults basically do the same thing, except we just don't say it. We're just thinking, "You're not paying attention to me. You're not listening." And what are we really doing mentally? We're cutting it, right? We're cutting it. So here's another one. Listening builds relationships. Okay, it builds relationships. Listening increases knowledge, and this sounds kind of simple, but what do you learn when you're talking? Absolutely nothing, right? So we only going to we're learning from listening. Listening generates ideas. Other people have a perspective and ideas, and when we listen, then it gives us time to think and process and create new ideas. How about this? Listening builds loyalty. Think about your best friend, whoever that is. Why are they your best friend? Because they talk really well? Because they listen really well. If you need somebody, you want them to listen, right? You don't want them to talk. And so the same thing in our business development. When we're out there trying to develop relationships with customers, or even inside the offices, think about it. Customers come in, they want somebody to listen to. They don't want to come in to hear a banker talk. They want somebody to listen. And that's the way we are as humans. So here's another one. Listening, it builds loyalty because they want to come in and have somebody to talk to. But listening is a great way to help others and yourself, because you can't help anybody. For instance, last night I was on the phone for an hour and a half, and as I'm talking, I was very conscious of the fact that I needed to do more listening than talking. So I probably talked for 20 minutes. I probably listened for an hour and 10 minutes. But now it's very hard on me, I promise. But I sat there and forced myself to keep listening and not interject. Think about that. So it was the phone call meaningful to the person that I was talking to? Absolutely. Had I done all the talking? Not so much. But because they did the talking and I did listening, it was probably a lot more beneficial for them. Okay, here we go. Here's some barriers to listening. These are things we face all the time, and so it's tough. But we overvalue talking. Think about it. We overvalue talking. How many times have we been in conversations and we've wanted to jump in? You ever felt like a racehorse at the gate waiting on the bell to go off? Everybody watch the Kentucky Derby? And the horses are in the gate and they're all antsy, and then the bell goes off and they tear out. That's kind of the way we feel sometimes. We've got things that we want to say. But guess what? If you're really that intent on speaking, what's happening to your listening? Yeah, you're processing what you want to say versus processing what you're hearing. And so it makes it very, very difficult to communicate really well when that's taking place. All right, think about this. We lack focus, and that kind of goes back to what we were talking about. But it's difficult to focus when you want to speak and you're both trying to talk. I'm going to jump in a little early here with this thought, but a couple nights ago, our family's sitting around talking about, my mother lives with us. And I probably get poor listening skills from my mother because she doesn't listen well. And so my daughter is talking about something that happened at the hospital. And about the third time my mother jumped in and cut her off, I finally just did this to my mom. I said, Mom. And she just glared at me like, and I said, she's trying to speak. That went over like a lead balloon, right? But the point being is that she's not even realizing it. And then I just told her after, I said, listen, I'm doing the same thing, but just trying to make you aware. You're cutting her off. Let her speak. Let her finish talking, then jump in. You can talk all you want to. Just let her finish, right? But again, was my mother listening to my daughter? Yeah, she wasn't hearing anything she said. I mean, I could just tell she was just trying to jump in there. As soon as my daughter took a breath, she sailed in. Well, what's that telling my daughter? What I'm trying to say isn't important to you. So think about it. Even at work, think about that. All right, we'll talk more about that in just a second. All right, here's another one. Common barrier to listening is mental fatigue. How well do you listen when you get tired? Not much, right? But when is it really important to focus on our listening? When we're tired, right? So make sure that we do that. Here's another thing. A lot of times we just kind of stereotype the conversation. I've heard this before, right? And guess what we do? Cut it off. I've heard all that before. How many times have you talked to a friend and it's the same, it's like they hit replay, repeat? You heard this conversation before. How many times do I have to hear it? What do we do? Yeah, we turn it off. But guess what they recognize that we do? Yeah, when we unplug, they realize that. So make sure you stay plugged in. Here's another one. A lot of times we carry personal emotional baggage. All right, that's preoccupying our minds, so then we can't focus on what's being said. You know, if you're thinking about things going on in your life, it's very hard to focus on other people speaking to you. So think about that. All right, here's another one. Sometimes we're just selfish. We're just preoccupied with ourselves, with what we think and what we're doing and what we've got going on, and we really don't give ourselves to other people to let them express themselves. And so make sure you're focused on other people. So here's the thing. Bryan Adams says, he's the author of Sales Cybernetics, and these are just some stats. But he says during our waking hours, we spend about 9% of it writing, 16% reading, 30% speaking, and 45% listening. And I think that's healthy percentages. If we're not careful, we move that around and it's unhealthy percentages, and we spend very little time listening to people and more time doing other things. So we need to spend most of our day actually listening to other people rather than trying to speak. So here, how can you become a better listener? Very intentionally, right? Just you do one word, very intentionally, but I'm going to give you some ideas. Number one, look at the speaker. Look at the speaker. I was in front of a group of about 60 executives the other day, and I'm speaking. Guy on the front row comes in. He's one of the C-level guys. He comes in with a laptop, opens the laptop. I speak for 40 minutes. He never looked up. Typed the whole time. Was he listening? You know what he said to me at the end? That was incredibly engaging. And me and my smart mouth, but I held my mouth. But I wanted to say, really? But he wasn't listening, right? What message did he send to me? I don't need this. What message did he send to everybody in the organization that was there? Say that again?
What you were saying wasn't that important.
Yeah, I'm up here and this conversation's down here. My laptop spreadsheets are more important than this down here, right? I mean, that's kind of what the message he was sending. Is that a good message? Yeah. What I wanted to tell him was, hey, you paid me a lot of money to be here. Go to your office, right? I'll talk to the people who want to hear. You go to your office. But I didn't say that. But I was thinking it, though. Here's another one. Don't interrupt. I was talking about my mom. Don't interrupt. If you interrupt people while they're speaking, it says what? What I've got to say is more important than what you've got to say. Not a good thing. All right, focus on understanding. Really engage mentally and try to understand. Don't just let them rattle on. Engage the conversation. Be a part of it. Here's another one. Determine the need now. What is it that they need from you? What is it that they're trying to accomplish? Just like the gentleman that I was speaking to last night. The first thing I had to do was figure out what he wanted, right? I mean, he wanted to talk, but what is it that he needs from me? And once you figure that out, then you can listen differently, all right? You can listen specifically. And then if you do ask a question, it's an engaging question, not just, yeah, right, okay. You getting those kind of conversations? Are you really listening? Probably not, right? Probably not. You're just hurrying them along and can't wait to hang up and move on to the next thing. So, all right, here we go. I can tell y'all are great listeners. So y'all don't really need this, right? All right, so here's another one. Check your emotions. Check your emotions. If we're emotionally fired up, do we listen well? Yeah, y'all have heard me teach before. When emotions are high, reason is low. Well, when emotion is high, listening is absent, right? We don't listen well when our emotions get up. So listen, if you're trying to speak with somebody, even with clients, think about this. How many times have clients come in and they were upset and you got upset? What kind of listening took place? Yeah, if they're under your skin a little bit, you need to regroup somehow. You know, reschedule. Let's talk about this later. I'll tell you what, let me come to your office. Change the environment. Do something different. But you got to get your emotions down to be able to hear each other, or there's not going to be any communication. All right, here's another one. Suspend your judgment. You know, a lot of times people start talking to us and we kind of know where they're going, so we go ahead and decide what it is that they're going to talk about, and we already make up our mind whether or not it's worth listening to or not, right? Instead of hearing them out. You've heard it. Have you ever told anybody, would you hear me out? Right? Let me get to the end. Let me finish before you start trying to decide what the answer is. All right, so suspend judgment. Here's another one. Sum up at major intervals. Listen, if you're engaging, just try to say, let me make sure I understand. And give them a point back that they're trying to make sure you're on the same page. I can't tell you how many times people have talked to me, and unfortunately I wasn't listening. And when I wasn't listening, I couldn't go back and tell you what their major points were. They might have had 5 major points, and the only one I got was the very last one, and it was because I just happened to have short-term memory. I could repeat it back to them, but missed most of the conversation. The best conversations are the one that I say, you mean you're telling me this? This is what you're saying? Yeah, okay. And then let them go on to the next one. And typically at the end of the conversation, then I can tell you what they were trying to talk about. So think about that. Here's another one. Ask questions for clarity, which is kind of what we just did, and always make listening a priority. Anytime you're engaging a client, even at home, make it a priority. I think I've told you before, my wife has told me many times. We were probably married almost 20 years, I guess, before she finally looked at me one day and said, you are a terrible listener. And I thought, no, I'm not. I'm not a terrible listener. Where are you coming up with that at? So she created some self-awareness in me, and I found out I was on a scale of 1 to 10, I thought I was about a 9. I thought more highly of myself than I ought to. Because in reality, after she made me aware of it, I'm probably more like a 2, maybe a 3 on a good day. Just not good. So what is it that I have to do now? Now that I'm self-aware, what do I do? Say it again. Yeah, I have to focus now. So what happens now when she starts talking, I have to close my book, or I have to turn off the TV, or I have to stop what I'm doing, and I turn around and I focus on her. I try to face her. I get everything pointed towards her so nothing's distracting me, and I'm talking directly to her and I'm listening to her. And then I want to speak, right? I want to speak, but what I really have to do is just bite my tongue and remind myself, hey, what I need to be doing is focusing on her and listening to her. And I'm asking myself, am I listening well enough to repeat what she's saying? And when I do that and I'm looking directly at her and I'm listening to her, our conversations go a whole lot better. The problem that I have a lot of times is that in times past, I've changed now. But in times past, she's spoken to me and the TV's going and I'm watching TV. Yeah, yeah, right. Or I'm in a book. Okay, yeah, I got it. What have I heard? Absolutely nothing, right? And later on she said, didn't you hear me say that? And I might have heard you say it, but I wasn't listening because it didn't register with me. So point being is, let's make listening a priority. Here's another one. Measure your listening skills. This is a good one. If you want to get better at it, ask somebody to measure you with these questions. Do I usually look at the speaker while he or she is talking? Think about that. How many conversations have you had and you've been talking to somebody's back because their face has been in the computer, or their head's down on a spreadsheet or a report, and you have a conversation and there's actually no engagement? Does that happen? Oh, that doesn't happen here, does it? Okay, maybe it's for a different office. All right, so do I wait for the speaker to finish talking before I respond? So does anybody interrupt you when you're speaking? Okay, that's a different office too. Okay. All right, so do I make understanding my goal? Okay? Do I make understanding my goal? Or do you just hear, right? You just hear the noise. All right, here's another one. Do I make it a practice to check my emotions? And do I suspend my judgment before the whole story? I'm going to speed through a couple of these. And do I ask questions for clarity when needed? Think about it. Just asking those questions. Is this the kind of listener I am? Because you know what? You might be like me. You might think more highly of yourself than you ought to. Here's another one. Make an appointment with the most important person in your life this week and plan an hour together. Okay? Just communicating. Just communicating. And then work on your listening skills. I'm going to share this with you from Robert Woodruff, and I'm going to stop with this. Life is pretty much a selling job. Whether we succeed or fail is largely a matter of how well we motivate the human beings with whom we deal to buy from us and accept what we have to offer. Success or failure in this job is essentially a matter of human relationships. It's a matter of the kind of reaction to us by our family members, customers, employees, employers, fellow workers, and associates. If this reaction is favorable, we're quite likely to succeed. If it's unfavorable, we're doomed. The deadly sin in our relationship with people is that we take them for granted. We do not make an active or continuous effort to do and say things that will make them like us, believe us, and create in them the desire to work with us and help us in the attainment of our desires and our purposes. Again and again, we see both individuals and organizations perform only to a small degree of their potential success or fail entirely simply because of their neglect of human element in business and life. They take people and their actions for granted, yet it is these people and their responses that make or break us. So here's the thing. Listening is one of those soft skills that's incredibly important in your relationships with people. And these guys are cutting me off and telling me I am out of time, so I appreciate you guys. All right, thanks. We good?